Looking for a break from routine? Spark something new with Bombay Sapphire. A tantalizing, bright, and balanced gin, Bombay makes the perfect match for a sparkling tonic. Awaken your senses this summer with a refreshing Bombay and tonic. Bombay Sapphire. Stir creativity. Click or tap the banner below to find out more. Copyright 2021. Bombay Sapphire and his trade dress are trademarks. Imported by Bombay Spirits Company, USA, Coral Gables, Florida. Gin 47%.
To turn to cold water washing with Tide.
The NFL, your uniforms get dirty.
Tide can handle it, even in cold. Plus, if fans join in, they can save up to $150 on their energy bill.
Looks like you just made the team, rookie.
Turn to cold with Tide.
And that's the bottom line.
It's got to be Tide.
From hot to cold and non-HE machine.
About the proposed ordinances and zoning. Okay. For the future. And now I did turn it over to Doc. So I'll answer questions. We'll turn it over to Mr. Brown. With that, I'm going to let these folks introduce themselves first. Then Mr. Brown can introduce himself and then back to you and go around.
All right, Doc Clark. Most of you probably talked to me before. This is April Morgan. This is my assistant. She'll be the one writing out questions down. As we go around the room, just state your name and district and what's your question. If you have a specific question, just go ahead and ask it, and I'll try to answer them the best I can. And then we'll have some discussion after that. So again, I'm Hart Clark. I was born and raised in Edgefield. I've been here my whole life. And I work for the county in the building and planning director.
Most of my life, I'm administrative assistant to the planning commission for another job.
And I'm Todd Brown. I'm your planning commission for District 5. I live off of Marktown Road. I'm born here, raised here.
I'm Jessica, and I am about 14 years. My husband, we have 4 sons, and we bought that property years ago to family property to pass down generations. And so I'm very passionate about keeping the rural area and protecting it.
Hey, I'm Josh Sorrell. I live on Baltimore Road. Moved out here 35 years ago when I was 4. And we had 5 members. Now we have about 40. And last month the SWAT team was called for a member. we hate seeing what was trees and wood turning into neighborhoods. That's all.
I'm Bill Putnam, I'm at a few hundred acres in District 5, and I'm here to listen.
My name is Hugh, Sweetwater Road. I would like to see some zoning. It bothers me that that truck parking lot's up there, the big truck repair shop coming to, I've lived here since the 80s. I like having cows in my neighborhood, chickens, stuff like that. I don't mind the neighbors shooting a lot, but I'd like to see some control over the housing developments that are going up. I'd like to see some maybe larger lots, maybe a little control over how many houses can come in. And, kind of keep industry out of this area. I mean, heavy industry out of that truck shop. And, parking lot like that. But I keep it rural also.
Johnson Garrison. We live on Blueberry Creek Drive, Blueberry Farm there. And personally, it affects me. I do a lot of tactical training and shooting and stuff. And the last thing I want was a bunch of high density neighbors and people calling the cops on me for that. I do it in a safe way, and don't want any kind of conflict transportation and stuff from that. Don't want the crime, we're gonna have to deal with all that. We have a wonderful rural area here, and there's all kinds of places north of Augusta, Grovetown. If you want to live in that kind of urban environment with that population density and all that, feel free to move there. But we definitely want to keep this area rural.
Sheree Garrison, Mom. We do own a little blueberry farm right there. Rural area, like to see identity, learn, get some more details.
John Galt, Sweetwater Creek Drive. I don't know what's on me. I'm looking at the webpage for Edgefield County. I'd like to read two statements. Edgefield County is beautiful, and the place is beautiful, and a place where we are so happy to call home. Our family's been here for a long time, and we really appreciate the small town atmosphere. The second person was, we call Edgefield County home because it's beautiful, unique, special, and it has the small town charm that we love so much. We could not imagine living anywhere else. Now, that's on your webpage. Some of my questions is why did you hire an Alabama group that specializes in economic development to come into Edgefield County to try to develop Edgefield County into an economic mega house because for some reason the county government here wants to increase revenue. I'm from the left coast. I left the left coast because of density housing, people living on top of each other. You could sit in your living room, and if you were quiet enough, you could hear the people in that house and they're living and what they were talking about. I don't want that. I came to Edgefield County because it's rural. Picked a nice little spot there on Sweetwater Creek Drive. I could go out there at night, I could sit on my back porch, I could sit on my front porch, and all I can hear are the animals. Don't hear the neighbors. During the summertime, I don't even see the neighbors because of the trees and stuff. In the wintertime, we can kind of see each other, but you have to look. And that's what I came here for. I didn't come here to be in a planned community where you plan on bringing in business, services, and tons of housing just to increase tax revenue in the county. This is a small community. People live here for a reason. If they didn't like it, they'd leave. And I suggest, like the young man said, if you don't like it here, put your name on the list. Maybe we can get some volunteers and we can help you move on out. We don't want that.
My name's Joel Hudson. My family's been here all my life, and I've been here most of it, probably 90%. Unlike somebody that implied that they've been here all their life, Scott, you haven't lived here all your life. You might have been here some when you was 10 years old. You might have come and visited, but you just recently moved to Edgefield County. That's right. How long? As the gentleman just spoke to you. Right, I know about him. He's not trying to put his own on anybody. I'm worried about you. How long have you lived in Edgefield County? You made him imply about the boy and all that stuff coming up, but you haven't lived here all your life, have you?
I've invested here, just like you.
Anyways, I've got questions.
I'll ask questions at the end that are directed at me.
I'm very Let me ask you, why are you so hard on this one? Why are you the only county council who really put it for minutes?
I will answer questions directly after you do.
Well, then why are we scheduled at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when everybody's at work picking their kids up from school? Not just sit there and imply that you've been here all your life and you're concerned with this county. What land did you're selling land up here?
I have sold no land in my.
You're right, you don't own no land, so you can't sell it.
I'm going to go back to the prayer that I said in the beginning. All right?
Right. I didn't get your name.
My name is Dr. I will answer questions directly. I want to focus I believe what is correct, the proper thing to do is to follow the outline of the agenda that has been established. If you want to ask questions directly to me as your representative at the end, I'll be happy to answer. So let's follow the agenda.
So what you want to do is just show me what you're gonna do, and then I might do the extra question. The problem is, you want the zoning, and you trying to get it, so when you sell your property, when you finally get it, or your family sells the property, because you don't own the land, and you sell that property, you can get more money for it. That's what you're pushing. We're not all stupid. That's what it is. And I got a question for you too, I'm not finished. Doc Hart, is it true that higher density brings MS4 from the state, which in turn increases our taxes? Is it true that zoning will not protect us from future planned developments, which are highest density housing? All right, when they build these subdivisions, who's going to pay for the sewer? And who's going to pay for all the schools and roads that's going to have to be increased? Yeah. He told me one time this is perfect. Well, it is perfect. I'm just walking back.
She's my nurse. That's my brother just stood up here. We've been in Edgefield County since the 1800s with my family. They're on Ridge Road. I'm half a mile below the place. These people that come out here and buy 5 acres, they come out here to get away from zoning and get away from all these rules and regulations. So y'all want to group it down to where you work on you a little bit at a time. Have y'all had ants in your yard? If you don't kill that first hill, what do they finally do? They take over your whole yard. Well, guess what that zoning is going to do? It's going to do the same damn thing. It is keep pieces and pieces and pieces at a time. And zone 1 is not the first one you're going to zone. You're going to go from 1 to 2 right on down the line. Yep. If people don't stick together just like we did 10 years ago and stop the zoning, we're going to be in trouble. We stopped it 10 years ago. They brought them from Columbia down here to change this area. We stopped it. We replaced county councilmen. We replaced people on the planning commission. And we're going to do the same damn thing again. We're going to straighten this county back up again because I love this place. I hope my kids, I got 4 boys, and I hope every one of them enjoy this place like I have. Amen. And I'll do anything in the world to stop it. Right. Otherwise, I'm trying to tell you, look at Evans and Martinez. Yeah. Each little place, there used to be country. Right there where Home Depot was a school. Right across the street was a butcher market. They worked on a little bit at a time. I'm telling you, they had to New York. Little sections at a time, and they ruled out everybody. They could not have a little farm, or chickens in the backyard, a cow in the backyard, or a horse in the backyard, and they stopped it all. Because of his own. People better wake up and look at what's going on, just like we did 10 years ago.
My name is Dolly Bridges. I live at Wyman Place, which is off of Woodlawn Road. I've been there 30 years. My husband also lives there. He's been living there since he was a child. That is his niece. She also owns property there, as does her 3 sisters, his son. So the property that we have has been passed down through four generations. The property that we live on has passed down through 4 generations. I understand zoning because I'm not originally from here. I'm from the Ozark Mountains Indian Territory, Native American. So I know what zoning is. I also know what people making decisions about your property, your land you own, is all about. I know what it's like to live in a city. I know what it's like to live in the suburbs. I know what it's like to live in the woods. I've been in all three places. Trust me, I'm an old lady. I know what it's like. I have major complaints with this. Number one, how many people do you see in this room? I've been here long enough to know there are more people in this community that own land than what I'm seeing in this room. Who is the representative for District 5? Are you doing your job? No, you're not. Because I've talked to people just in the last week, and I would bet 90% of the people that live in this community don't have a clue what you're planning to do. Exactly. That's number one. And number two, you do not schedule a meeting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when a whole lot of parents are having to pick up their children from school. You schedule it when it's convenient to have the people you represent present to hear what you're doing, what you're proposing to do, and why you're proposing to do it. Otherwise, this is blindsiding, and 90% of the people that live in this community are going to call it stealing our rights. Do you know how sick and tired people are with government officials stealing our rights? Or forcing their opinions and their ideas on us without any consideration for what our needs are, what we believe in, and what we desire for our community. Now that means the young man who does, or the fellow who doesn't like having certain things near his property, wants some changes and thinks zoning's going to fix it. It won't, trust me. Because people are going to do what they want to do. And zones are 99% controlled by bureaucracy. So I understand, and yes, I agree with your complaints. Number two, you're taking a blanket approach to District 5. You can't. You cannot. This district is so diverse, you have got to get up off your ass and get out there and learn that are popping up in areas like in Trenton and around. I can't tell you that. But what I can tell you this is, you need to stop this. Stop this right now and get your ass out there and walk around to the community, learn your community, and figure out what you can do that's going to help everybody. And especially the individual who is representing District 5. If you're going to do this, then it's going to be for 90% of your constituents are going to be a hell no, and this will be your last term. You won't be here again.
District 1 and 2.
That I can promise you. Because it's not, this is going to have a bad impact on the community that those people live in. And as speaking as a Native American who loves land and hates concrete, oh my God, you don't want to hear my opinion about that. I don't mind development. I don't mind people building their little houses in sparse places. Sometimes I don't like what my neighbor has in their front yard. But you know what? Freedom. It's their land, their life. This is not a suburban community where we live. It is not. And maybe you even need to consider breaking up this district for areas where the concentration of housing has grown to the point where there are no more farmlands, and most of it is suburban communities, not densely populated with acreage in between, or some that are densely populated. You can't take a predominantly rural area with a few patches of communities that have been built in there and do a blanket zone for it. It will not work. You're going to hurt your farmers, your forestry, and 90% of the people that live in that community. So I love it, and I agree with the man. Don't bring somebody from Atlanta out, or Alabama, or anywhere else. Why are you bringing in a developer? Talk to your community leaders. Now, if you need somebody out, you find out what you need done, what your community people want. Then get a professional to come in and help you draw up the paperwork for it. But don't go out there and grab somebody to do this crap, and I know you haven't done any research, because you sure as hell haven't been on our property or talked to anybody out there. You're not doing your research or talk to your community, the people you're representing. This is not going to work. Take it back. Go talk to your community. I understand development. I understand the needs of people that are living in pseudo-suburban communities that are a little closer to industrial areas or the city, but not in our area. And the representative of District 5, given what your father owns, you ought to know better. You ought to know better. You need to get out and talk to your people, stop this, or talk to your people and go back to the drawing board, because this is not going to work. And 90% of the people that live in this district, if they find out what you're doing, they're going to stop it. They're going to fight you every step of the way.
I appreciate your comments. I'd like to move on to the next one.
Let me tell you one thing. Back to my property, I got a neighborhood. And it's zoned. Been there for 10 years. I've never had a problem with it. I got goats. I got lambs. I got horses. Nobody ever bothered me about my land. That's their business. I don't care what they do in their community. They got their zones. They got their restrictions. That's fine. I don't care. If they want to live like that, that's awesome. And they don't live on about a half acre or acre land. They got 200, 300,000, 400,000 home. I'm glad for them people. But when you move in there, buyer beware of what's next to you before you buy your property. That's what I got to say.
I stood up to moderate as Doc sat down. So what I want to do is I want to finish those who have not had a chance to speak, and then we'll circle back, okay, to address the concerns that have been raised. When you've spoken already, I'm going to call on those who have not spoken. Go ahead.
My name is Joel Bridges. I'm her word back, I guess. This is my wife. That's my niece. Sheila Blackmore was my niece. What's your name, sir?
Scott Cooper.
Scott Cooper. Well, you know, I was raised And,
Do you have anything else to add?
you know, if I did, I will come to you personally.
Excuse me?
I said, if I do, I'll come to you personally.
Okay.
Cause I'm in a wheelchair now, and I can't walk. But when I was several years ago, you wouldn't want to talk to me.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Stewart, you have anything to add?
I'm here because, like 20 years ago, the zoning moved up closer to me. And he gets y'all this time, it's gonna be closer to me, I'm up on Garrett Road. You know, every so many years, that zone is gonna move up the road till it hits me to, so I'm back here supporting y'all. I want y'all to stand, I want y'all to use your voices, I don't think he's hearing y'all because Tiffany has introduced her zone, Jackie introduced her zone, Albert introduced his zone, Sky. I'm sorry, Sky. I'm here to back y'all up. Y'all have a stronger voice, so y'all speak up for your rights. Spread it on your neighbors. I've gone door to door. I've flashed mailboxes. I've done everything. So I just want y'all to speak up because it's good for me.
Okay, Ms. English.
Linda Anderson. In 2012, Meriwether came together. Speak loud. Speak loud. Right. Okay, in 2012, Meriwether came together. We had a meeting over at the Meriwether Middle School. There's 150 or more people there. And the message at that time was, we know growth is coming. We welcome it. We want quality growth, and we do not want to be Columbia County nor Rose County. It is going crazy. I am in District 2, which bumps right up to District 5. All of these houses here, you've got Cooper Place, you've got the other houses there, you've got the Oaks, you have Ann Street, you've got Stevens Hill, you've got everything, you've got Fox Chase, you've got all these little subdivisions, these neighborhoods that have already set up, they have at least a half acre. Some of them have a whole acre. People are moving here and have been moving here constantly. And why? Just like everybody said. They are trying to escape what we're seeing coming in. That is not conducive. There are places where we should have some of those houses. Not in the rural area. Planning means that you look at areas, citizens come together, landowners come together, and you say, what are we fine with? We want to welcome people in. One of the biggest things that we need right now is more commercial. Where should that be? Not just popped up anywhere that a developer comes in and says, I think this right here is a good place. I did a Facebook question a few weeks ago, and I said, okay, let's ask this question. Why are you here? Do you have deep roots? Or have you come in? I've got 4 pages slap full of comments. Not a single person said I'm moving here for high density. Every person said I'm moving from Columbia County, I'm moving from Aiken, I'm moving from Augusta, I'm moving from North Augusta. And they're coming in, they're wanting 1 to 2 acres or more. They want to enjoy the same thing we have here. And why do we say that Edgefield looks different? Because we are different. We are different. We are quickly moving into what we all want. That's my piece in.
My name is Kathy Akron. I don't live in Scott's district, and I'm just learning all of this stuff over the last 6 or 7 months. I live in Dr. Kenyon's district, which I think is 2. I'm off of Highway 25 at Mount Zion on Sandy Springs Road. So we've owned this property. It's about 55 acres. My husband farms it. We produce hay, and we used to have cows. So we're concerned like everybody else. But I live in community. I'm probably the only black family in this entire community. Now, these black families have been there for multi-generations. They're like Caroliniana, the Stevens that have the Caroliniana nursery. That land grant was what, 1768, something like that, from the King of England. So some of these families have been around forever. I'm just retired there. We own the property, then we built, retired. I agree with everything that is being said, and I'm like Rhonda, I'm paying attention. Now, I don't want to see Highway 25 completely exploited. I'm starting to accept the fact that that's the game plan, that they're going to push industry and commercial and high-density housing on Highway 25. All right, yesterday we had a young man get killed when he ran into a semi-tractor trailer truck. 3 days ago, we had somebody else on Muscata Lake get killed in a wreck. It's a no-brainer. You're putting in families, dense, school buses. We're worse than Washington Road ever was, and I grew up on Washington Road because Washington Road doesn't have oil tankers. They don't have semi-tractor trailer trucks. They don't have heavy delivery trucks. They don't have all of this commercialization. Now, I understand that the long-term goal for DOT is Bettis Academy Extension over to Mount Vintage, back to Sweetwater, and all of those thousands of acres are going to be opened up, and that's where the money generating is from. But my back door, my front door, is right in the middle of this. So we've already got high density. We've got Williams Heritage Place. We've got the other thing that's right there, that Carbon Construction Group came in and put that nasty, ugly rooftop subdivision in. When you look out at a subdivision and all you see is a sea of rooftops, no trees, no shrubbery, no nothing, something ought to click. This is the ugliest thing on the planet. Bettis Academy used to be a beautiful black community-based area. Now it's just a clay court pit. Aiken County's doing that. Aiken County can't slow up. So if we're competing with Aiken County, I say anybody that wants that, move to Aiken County. Leave Edgefield County alone. I know we need the new jail. I know we need better police officers. I know we need a lot of stuff, but we need to work it out with something different than just cramming school buses and children in cars and tractor trailer trucks and oil tankers all on the busiest freeway that we have, which is Highway 25.
Can I say,
You've had an opportunity, but
I just want to ask Dot one thing. As I was talking about all these subdivisions, these neighborhoods that are already set up, even those that have HOAs, they are going to be some GR, general residential. That means single-family homes, apartments, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. So does that tell, I mean, you can answer this later. Is that telling us that these neighborhoods that have the half acre or the 1 acre or in that area can accept those multifamily? You can answer that later. But I think everybody needs to understand.
I think you voted down, correct? All right, ma'am, do you want to add something?
I pretty much agree with everything they said. I'm Vicki Carpenter. I'm from 13 North Ranch Trail. The family has family land there, 125 acres, and we've been there for 200 years. And I don't think it's right for y'all to come in and tell us what we can and can't do.
Okay, Ms. Walsh?
Yeah, so I live off Moore Road. It's not your district, but we're right next to each other. So what you do in District 5 is eventually going to affect District 2, so that's why I came. I've been out here 32 years. We raised 5 children on our 8 acres in the shared pond. It's been fantastic. We left. My husband and I grew up in North Augusta in a high-density neighborhood, and we knew when we got married that's not where we wanted to stay. And we were house poor for years to pay for the property and a little bit of house that we had to stay out here, to move out here, to be in a rural area. That's why we moved out here. I know growth's coming. I'm not against growth. I'm not against more people moving into the county, but we are a rural county, and we can offer something in the CSRA that no other county can offer, and that is large lots, farmland. And this might be a dirty word for some of y'all, but I am a real estate agent. I'm a real estate agent. I love selling homes and helping people find homes, but I will tell you, 7 out of 10 of my buyers are like, they're in the high density neighborhoods in Graniteville, North Augusta, Grovetown. And they're like, I want to move to Edgefield County and I want 2 to 10 acres. That's what they're looking for. I can't find it for them. That's what they want. They don't. Cooper Place is a beautiful development, beautiful quality homes. But that's something they can find in North Augusta, Grovetown, Graniteville, Aiken. That's not what they're looking for. They want land. They want freedom. They want to be able to have maybe some chickens, have a garden, park their camper, park their boat, and get out of the storage facilities. Because they're having to store stuff in a storage facility because they can't park it in their yard, or they can't have the size storage building in their backyard because of HOA restrictions. And I have customers wanting to move to Edgefield County, but they're wanting space and freedom and quietness and get away from the traffic. They want to leave. They work in the city, they work at SRS, they work in the hospitals, wherever. But when they come home, they want to come home to space and peace and quiet. And to them, it's worth the drive. And they don't care that the closest grocery store is 8 miles away. They're not looking for that. People that want to be on small lots and convenience of the city, that's where they're buying houses. And I have buyers that are really disappointed, and they compromise and they buy something in a high-density HOA neighborhood, and 2 years later they're calling me and they're going, we thought we could handle it, we can't handle it, get us out of here, find us another property, let's put our house on the market. The trend now is away from these high-density HOA-controlled neighborhoods.
Amen.
And I think
I'm having more and more buyers saying, I did it, I want out of it.
And a lot of the people that live in District 5 are terrified that you are going to tax them to the point that you force them to sell property that's been in the family for decades.
All right, has anyone not had an opportunity to visit? Anyone here that did not? Yes, no. I'm elected. I'm elected. I'm elected. Yes. Is there anyone else that did not have a chance to speak?
We are going to get to ask questions.
Okay. So I just want to say a couple things real quick before I turn it over to the resident expert who is on staff to handle this. This meeting was organized by Ms. Annie Reese. I'm not going to be able to pronounce the hyphenated name. The indication she gave me was it was a family meeting. It wasn't a public meeting. I asked her what time would she like to have it, and we went back and forth a couple times. And she wanted 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon because that's what worked best for her. So that's why we're here at 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon, because this wasn't a public meeting. I don't mind it being a public meeting. I'm happy to hear from each and every one of you. And actually, I think I agree with most of you on probably 90% of what you're saying. But what I'm going to go back to is this isn't being rushed. And then I am going to turn back over. This process began in 2018. So we're in 2021. It got postponed a year to COVID. It's actually 18 months, so we've had extra time. I don't know how many of you participated in small group meetings, but the purpose of small group meetings, which we did for months, was to do what we're doing today. And they were very productive. They were very productive. And that's it. Let me just finish.
I don't know how you get into small group meetings, because I don't have
social media. It was promoted, and we sent out postcards. I think we spent 11.
Postcards to who? We didn't get it.
Well, I cannot control your mailbox, all right? But what I can control is what gets sent out, okay? And postcards, they get mailed out. Bullshit. So let me just finish, and then I'm going to turn it over to Doc, and we'll go into specifics. What incredibly important to me. Nutrition is incredibly important to me, and healthcare. I believe revitalizing small, I always use the term sustainable agriculture, but one of my peers refers to it as conventional agriculture, is incredibly important for a wide range of reasons. It helps build resilient communities. We're talking about building communities. That's important to me. I'll say it again, property rights, free market, nutrition, and healthcare, resilient communities.
What about disrupting?
So the meeting was scheduled to begin on stage by a constituent. We have a lot of small meetings with constituents who won't come to a large setting like this. And that's the other thing I just want to say. I mean, that's factually accurate. You can agree to disagree with me, but I know a lot of people that will not come into this setting. And 200 years ago, I'm going to say one more thing. And then I'm going to turn it over to the doctor. We'll get to the meeting. But 200 years ago, all these meetings that we're having were held in the church. Historically, the church was the meeting place. And what happened in February in our community prevented us from having meetings inside a church in the future, which I think is unfortunate.
And that's the fault of the planning commission.
It is a community issue, and it's problematic. And my father, a couple of you mentioned my father.
What was the problem with it?
It got very raucous.
Do you know why it got very raucous?
Well, we can discuss that. My point is, and it's my turn to speak now.
That's fine.
200 years ago, all of our meetings were held in church, and we can't do that anymore. And that's unfortunate. So I just want you to pause and think about that as we move forward, okay? Because that's important to me. And we can talk about the specifics.
It's not the people's fault that happened.
There was a wide range of reasons
that happened. It's because we sat there for an hour with nothing taking place. Not everybody could come in. They had to go sit in a car.
A public hearing.
It was because of the way it was done. That was not the people's fault.
I'm going to turn it over to the specifics for
You
should.
How many did you have when you had COVID going on for people couldn't attend? They had to sit outside, they couldn't come into the meeting with 12 people at a time. How many meetings did y'all have in town council that y'all would let people come to the meeting because of COVID going on? It should have been stopped and waited until the COVID was over so everybody could attend.
Okay. So I have quite a few questions here, but I wanted to start with something simple. How many of you are against high-density subdivisions? Okay. How many of you are against property regulations? You can't have both. How many of you? How many of you believe that the county develops property? The county does not develop anything. The county does not build anything. Right, through regulation. Edgefield County, if you buy your property and you want to use it, Edgefield County cannot tell you that you can't use your property that way unless you're violating a regulation. So, if you want lower density, there has to be some regulations in place to limit the size of those lots.
Can a county ordinance regulate lot size?
So, just like I was about to say, we have already passed a law that if you have water and sewer on a property, your lot size is one thing. If you do not have water and sewer on your property, your lot size is another. So in those areas, for instance, Woodlawn Road that does not have water and sewer, if a major subdivision wanted to build there, they have to have 2.5 acre lots. That law has already been passed by county council. Now, it has a sunset clause, so during the process that we're currently working on, that law has to be re-looked at and made permanent or changed however it's going to be changed. So that's one thing that has already been done. Now, use regulations. Let's say you own a farm and you buy the land right next to it and want to put an industry there. Unzoned means you can't. Period. We don't get a say. A lot of people think that zoning is taking regulations off of the property. That's not how it works. Zoning is putting use restrictions on the property. So, for instance, the zoning that is proposed in District 5, all the way up to Bridge Road and across to the county line, is RR. Now, RR allows for all your regular agricultural uses, so farming, timber, etc. It allows for residential uses, so houses, manufactured homes, etc. And it allows for rural commercial uses, so think bait and tackle shops, not Walmart. Okay? What it does not allow is heavy commercial, like Walmart's. It does not allow industries like Firestone, Bridgestone. It does not allow things like
General Dollar Store?
well, General Dollar is a general store.
That land was on residential, all the way down Morgantown Road, and somehow or another it got changed and left out of the zoning, so they could build a building. But it wasn't. It was zoned. It wasn't the dump.
It is zoned.
Yeah.
That
They
entire
rezoned.
section is zoned limited commercial.
Right. They rezoned it. Originally it was on no commercial.
Well, that might be the case. I can only go back to 2012.
Well, I gotta look at it.
But in
2012,
it was limited commercial.
So this RR, is it state what I can and can't do on my property? What I can park up anywhere
No.
on my,
It determines use, setbacks, and lot size. So, for instance, if, let's say you give your son 2.5 acres, which is what you require to do if you don't have a water and sewer. So, setbacks are, you have to be at least 30 feet off of a major highway. You have to be at least 10 feet from your neighbor's property. Those sorts of, that's what setbacks are. Lot size determines what a developer's minimum size lot they can cut out of a piece of property. So let's say, like this property that's right here is owned by a development company, 1,700 acres of land off the Woodlawn is owned by a development company. A lot size is if they come in there and they want to cut it up, what's the smallest lot they can cut up? Now, with the county-wide ordinance that's set by water and sewer, that applies both to zoned and unzoned areas. So right now, because they don't have water and sewer, they'd be limited to 2.5 acre lots. However, if the developer wants to put water and sewer in, and they bring water and sewer to it, if it's unzoned, they can build it as small as they want. 4 acre lot, 8,000 square foot lot, doesn't matter. There's no minimum in unzoned. But if it's zoned RR, then that minimum would be 1 acre. They would not be able to cut out less than 1 acre lot. So that's what zoning does. Zoning is about restricting the uses in one area versus another. Yes, sir.
Can that not also be accomplished through ordinances?
Not countywide. No, you can set conditions on the use, but you cannot make a use illegal without zoning.
Lot size can be controlled with a county ordinance, correct? Yes.
Yes.
Very much so.
But again, it has to be conditional, just like the one we just wrote that's conditioned on water and sewer. You can't just say countywide 5 acre lot size.
Right.
You cannot say that. That is illegal because then you can't meet fair housing requirements of the federal government.
But it can be done.
Which we have done. As you've seen, if you don't have water and sewer, you have a 2.5 acre.
What is the
lot.
advantage to zoning over county ordinance?
The advantage of zoning is that it can restrict use. That's the advantage of zoning. Anybody. So, how many of you have a nice
See,
home?
the problem with zoning was defined to me like this. It's the government coming in and telling you what you can do with your property, but yet they pay no taxes and they pay no mortgages on that property.
Right.
So what business do they got?
But it also does the same thing for your neighbor's property. So, for instance, if your neighbor wants to put a junkyard next to your house and the zoning doesn't allow it, it gives the government the permission to tell them, no, you can't do that. But if it's unzoned, we have no authority to tell them
If
no.
he's zoned for that and he wants a junkyard, then he's gonna put it in there anyway.
It's
It's a two-way sword, but what I don't understand is, if we've been getting along, let me see, Edgefield County's been around how long?
Yeah.
I think something told me 1678 or something like that. How many years is that?
A long time.
Long time. So why do we want to change now?
Okay,
Why do we want to change now?
To bring in
how many
development.
houses were built in 2016?
I have no idea.
How many were built in 2019? A lot more were built in 2019 than 2016 or 2015 or 2014. People are moving, okay? And when people come and buy land, they have the same exact property rights that you do. Whether they want to build one house or build 560 houses, they have the same right to do that. The way the government restricts that is through zoning and ordinance regulations. You have to put land development regulations in place in order to achieve the density
What I
that you're
understand
talking.
is, why can you do it through zoning, but you can't do it through ordinance?
Use, land use.
Okay, so you make a land use ordinance?
That's called zoning.
No, land
Yes.
use ordinance.
No. Zoning is an ordinance. Zoning is a land use ordinance. Zoning is defined as geographical control
Zoning
of use, lot size, and setback.
Used for economic development within communities to bring in revenue.
You are incorrect.
No, I am not.
Yes, you are.
And if you talk to a lot of communities, you'll find out the biggest mistake they ever made was zoning, because they couldn't control what was going on once that thing was passed. You could end up with a superstructure apartment building right next to a
Only if it was zoning.
community. That's what I'm getting at.
And
But
you
if it's
control
not
What
zoning.
I'm saying is that so far we've been doing just fine without zoning. Why is it all of a sudden become an issue? I'll tell you why. Because the county government wants economic growth. The way you get economic growth is through zoning. We don't want economic growth. We don't want to be Martinez. We don't want to be Evans. We don't want to be Thompson. We don't want to be Grovetown. We want to be Edgefield.
I understand that, but Edgefield County does not control the sale of
That's
property.
why you guys hired that group out of Alabama, which specializes in economic development for growth to increase revenue to the county.
When we send out, part of government regulation is sending out an RFP, request for proposal, anytime we do anything, most of the time, right? When we send out the RFP for the comprehensive plan, we get two companies apply. Only one was a South Carolina company. And based on information we had, we chose to go with the other company.
But you didn't have to do it if he wasn't pursuing the zoning.
The
You
comprehensive
wouldn't have to do it at
the
all.
comprehensive plan is a law that we're required to redo it every 10 years. Now, we could
You're
choose.
required to review
We
it.
could have chosen.
You're required
we
to
could have
review it.
chosen.
Not changing that.
No, every 5 years is the review, every 10 years you have to write a new.
We could
You don't
have.
have
You don't have to write a new
You
one.
don't have to write a new fix it.
Let me just finish my sentence, please. We could have chosen not to hire a consultant.
No.
But we felt like we don't know what we don't know.
I don't even know.
So let's get someone who
Look, I don't even know how to,
And this
how
gentleman,
to put it back.
the individual that spent the most time on it, had 4 years experience, and his team had over 100 years experience. And we felt it was not insignificant investment to make for a team that was learning how to do the best for our community. I think it was a good investment.
They done the same thing 10 years ago. They done the same thing 10 years ago. They hired people out of Columbia to come down here and show us how to rezone the area. No people out here agreed to have these people come down here and spend all these thousands of dollars and we short the county anyway. Hire these people out of Columbia to show us how to develop this place. Now you go to Atlanta and get one and bring in here. I mean,
And then you want to,
people, they ain't got to say something.
If you're zoned for RR, how easy is it
No,
to
you
put
can't
it
say
down
that.
to change that zoning?
The same as it is for them to establish zoning. It takes 3 readings, and each reading has to be approved by a majority council.
So it doesn't have to go to the council.
Your county council members are your elected representatives. And for any law to be passed, and an ordinance, no matter what kind of ordinance, each reading is approved when 3 of your county councilmen agree. So,
What month were those 3 meetings held?
so what?
What 3 months were those meetings held, the meetings held to approve this?
We haven't approved it yet. We're
I was
still
starting to approve it.
We haven't even started to approve it yet.
Well, we started having meetings on it.
We started having meetings almost 3 years ago, but nothing has been voted on in terms of the zoning by county council as of yet.
Who was in those meetings?
Who? The county council.
Who was in
You go
those
to the
meetings?
county council.
So you know what to do next time the election comes.
Who was in those meetings?
What meetings?
County council's the only people in those meetings
No.
deciding what's gonna happen.
Every public meeting is posted in the paper, and every public meeting is posted on the website.
And if the majority of our district is rural, where are we getting the information?
Either through the paper or the website.
I don't get the paper and I don't have a computer.
Okay,
Where am I getting the information?
this is gonna sound antagonistic, and it's not meant that way. But when you put the public information out there, on the website, on Facebook, in the paper, that's what you can do. We can't afford to go knock door to door and notify each individual person in the county. If somebody's not paying attention to either the newspaper or the website, they don't want to know.
Stop. What resource do our representatives on that council have for communicating with us?
The same avenues that
That's
they
it.
always have. They have their website, they have their Facebook, and they have the newspaper.
And if their constituents, if the majority of their constituents don't have any of those 3, how will they get communication?
They have set meetings like every month, I guess.
Yes, they do. They have set meetings, they are open, and they are open to the public.
And at the same time, every month.
It is unless it's canceled, in which case notice is sent out.
What's the date? Do that.
So that would be the first Tuesday of every month for county council and the second Thursday of each month for the planning commission.
And where is that published and where is that distributed?
That
How
is
is that
published,
communicated?
that is published in the newspaper.
And the internet, and if you don't have those, how's the person going to get it?
You're not.
That's what it's saying.
Which means that the majority of your constituents are not going to have input or any knowledge of what you're planning to do in their district.
That's what I asked them every Tuesday, the first Tuesday of every month is when they have their meeting. So that way you know. So,
But how many people do you see in this room that
oh,
are
I know.
members?
I didn't know.
Well, this meeting was not even open to the public.
Not even open to the, how many meetings did you have before you came up with the decision to do
We
the
got like 19 public meetings.
I'm gonna,
First of all, when you have a pandemic going on that restricted the number of people that could listen and hear what you were gonna do, you should have stopped then until we could hear what you were gonna do. Because you're sitting there assuming you wanna do this and the whole world is against you. Nobody's saying no zoning. If you remember, I said, some things will work, some will not. In District 5, you cannot take a blanket approach for District 5. You cannot do the same thing for every area in District 5. You cannot have one code, one classification, one zone for all of this District 5, is what I'm saying. And if you don't have input from your community and communication with your community, how are you representing them? You're not.
I'm going to make a comment, and then I'm going to make a statement to Doc. The comment is, we've had 17 or 19 public meetings on this issue since the beginning of 2018.
That means
So
that-
let me just finish a couple of sentences before we interrupt. In this process, our county is 90% unzoned, which is a concern to me. Because a developer could come in and put as many lots in an area that is without water and without sewer as they want, up to 12,000 square foot lot size.
then why were
And
fees
let-
reduced?
Let's not be interrupted. I'm answering questions. All
Well,
right?
I have one.
Megan Pearson, please don't interrupt me. I'll come back to you in a minute. Okay? it was very important to me that we put an ordinance in place to maximize, to not allow that density in an area where there's no public utilities. Because it's a huge issue for the water safety and the water supply.
No, it's not just a second.
I will address any of the
Let me know, because see, what I hear you doing is defending yourself.
I'm not defending, I'm
Let
not
me-
the process you're saying you have to listen.
Let me answer
This is
that.
the process we've been through.
Okay, stop, get off the defensive and just
I'm not
listen to what
defensive,
I'm saying.
I'm answering your question.
How long have you been in office?
I've been elected, I was elected in 2016, when this land that I'm describing to you now was unzoned. It is now zoned.
What effort have you made to make yourself known in this community? To get to know your community? The one that you represent?
I tell you what, it is 2016, I've been very available. This meeting was scheduled by a resident.
You know what? I don't even know your name.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't know who you are. I have to look it up.
Okay. Doc.
Okay. Now, listen, that's one comment. There's another one is, you're having meetings during the pandemic where people don't have access. Restricted access. You should have done that. That's not fair.
Tell me your name again.
Bridges.
Bridges, what's the first name?
Dolly.
Dolly Bridges. Okay.
All people
I'm
are
gonna
saying
answer- I'm
is
gonna answer your
fairness
question.
and representativeness.
I'm going to answer your question, Dolly. We paused because of COVID.
Okay, do you
We
think so?
paused because of COVID,
Do you
and
think
we
it's-
postponed all meetings from when that decision was made until the public meeting last December. It was 6 months.
Did I misunderstand? I heard somebody say that there were meetings going on during the pandemic and they couldn't get in because it was restricted access to more than 16 people.
We paused this process that we're in now in late spring of 2020. And we did not pick it back up again until November 2020. And today is September of 2021. So we actually have done what you're asking us to do. We've postponed. What I want to do now, and I'm asking for your support with this. I want to allow Doc to just go through his list and answer every issue that you've raised.
I still have a question.
Systematically, so that all the answers can be, all the questions that have been asked can be answered by 4:30. And then those that want to go can go. And maybe I'll be happy to stay as late as y'all want. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So I wanted to address some of y'all's questions. All right, so MS4 and how that works. So currently in Edgefield County, stormwater is controlled by the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. Once an area gets to a certain size, they can designate you as one of 3 different MS4 districts. Okay, you have your small MS4, which means you do things like your outflows and minor stuff like that. And then you go all the way up to, like Charleston, where you have a major MS4. The MS4 is based on rooftops and population, and not the entire area is usually done at one time. So it's not going to be like MS4 district Edgefield County. It will be, this section has reached a certain level of population, and then that area is designated MS4. Once an area becomes designated in MS4, then that means the county is responsible for the stormwater inspections and permitting in that area, which does require that we have an engineer, we have an inspector, and those sorts of things. So yes, at that point, the people living inside of that MS4 district would then be assessed a fee, or taxes would have to increase, or whatever the case is, to pay for the new people, if the county didn't have enough revenue to just do it outright.
So otherwise you're gonna charge for the rainwater that falls off the roof, correct?
That's what stormwater is.
So the same water falls whether you got a house there or not. I got a friend in Hickman County, lives on 150 acres. He built a house in the middle of it. They charge him for the rainwater running off his house. He lives flat, level ground. That's what we're talking about government wanting to take over and run over. Why the hell do you charge that? In a neighborhood neighborhood, yes. In the community, yes. When you got paved roads, curb, sidewalk, I can understand that. You know what you're moving into. But a piece of property in the middle of 150 acres? Come on.
Okay, I just want to say this very clearly. Edgefield County does not want an MS4. We appealed DHEC's last decision to give us an MS4. The state determines mandatory whether you are or not an MS4 and where it's at. That is not a decision by county council. That is not a decision by county staff. That is not a decision by the citizens of Edgefield County. That is given to us as a direct order by the state.
And it's based on rooftops.
It's based on population.
It's based on rooftops.
Yes, population.
Would it not be?
We control density by controlling lot sizes. That is the only method we have. Yes, Ron?
So MS4 is controlled by density. The density is controlled by ordinances. How many ordinances do we have on our books for both zoned and unzoned land right now?
That
Well, we
protect.
have two. We have one that's for unpaved roads, and we have one that's for paved roads. It's based on ordinance.
So
Those are the two that we have currently.
in theory, we can have ordinances without having zoning because we currently have.
Correct. And those
Yes.
ordinances will work for lot size. They will not work for use.
Which we're fine with. Most of us are, we don't
How
have
many of you showed
problems.
up against the latest development? How many showed up against the latest solar farm?
We have a solar ordinance right now that does absolutely nothing to restrict solar development. They can come in and be as big as they want. They can surround your house. We have an ordinance that says they can do so. It does nothing to restrict them.
Right.
Why
And
can't
that's
we
one of the
write
things
one?
that's being rewritten. Now, with zoning, you can simply say, this section of the county is residential. We're not allowed.
That is
solar.
the difference in county ordinance and zoning. Zoning breaks our county into
Into
zones.
areas.
They get to pick which zone gets developed. You notice zoned Meriwether is who's getting developed.
Megan.
Y'all have zoning, right? Zoning has the problems.
Megan, let me ask you a question though. Do you think that industry is appropriate everywhere?
I do not.
You do not.
I do
Do you
not.
think commercial is appropriate and
I do
allowed to be
not.
allowed everywhere?
I do not.
Okay, well, zoning is how you determine where those things can be.
Or
If it's
county
unzoned,
ordinance.
You know, if it is unzoned, you cannot make a use illegal.
The majority of commercial ventures that we're all worried about, such as before, we need zoning to protect us from a chicken house. How many people were told that when Kevin was
That's
here?
where I understood it. It was zoned to protect.
I was
that
told
part
that.
of the road. Now
Because it was next door to.
The state
to a
regulates
little
chicken
community
houses.
that they classified as a suburban community. The issue is, when you're doing zoning, if you say we absolutely have to have zoning in order to protect our property, who decides what's in the zone and what the restrictions are?
The county council.
I don't like that. Because don't get me wrong, with your government, I don't trust you.
I 100% with you. That is.
And especially when there's a lack of communication.
But my job is to explain things to people. I'm a staff member. I do not get a vote on anything. I do not get to decide anything. I work for you to answer questions and help people understand what rules and regulations are. And my other job is to show up when you break those rules and force you to comply. That's the other side of my job. So,
Okay, then
please don't take this as a personal assault on you. But the way our government works is you elect representatives, and your representatives make the rules and regulations. If you don't agree with the rules and regulations that your representatives are putting in place, then you vote for somebody else. Or you can say,
How many districts are in Edgefield County?
5.
How big are those districts? What's the population of those districts? Are we at a point where we need to subdivide some of those districts and get?
That is being discussed right now.
I think we need to stop with this and do that.
That-
Because I don't think one person covering all of District 5 can possibly meet the needs of everybody that's in that district at this point. It's not the same as it was 20 years ago.
Okay.
They're redoing this. So,
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
We're talking about ordinances.
Correct.
When a developer comes in, whether they are commercial, whether they are residential, anybody that wants to come in, especially in an unzoned area, or they want to put something in a zoned area, they want to change, they have to apply, correct?
Correct.
So, if everybody in this room, everybody in the county is happy with the way their property is being used now, and they don't plan on changing it, if they want to change it, they would have to come and request it be changed, correct?
If they wanted to change their zoning, yes.
No, if they wanted to change the use, if they wanted to do something on their property.
Okay, so if they wanted to put a business where their house is currently, is that what you're saying?
Well, that, or if they want to put in a big development, they want to sell their property.
Yes, they would have to apply to the planning commission
Okay,
for
so
commercial
here's the thing.
renovation. But we can't deny them.
But here's the thing. The ordinances tell them what they can or cannot do based on what it is they want to do, correct?
If it's zoned.
No, whether it's zoned or not.
No. There are no use restrictions on unzoned property, period, by law. No use restrictions on unzoned property.
Unzoned property, the planning commission, District 5, that is the thing that I focus on more than anything, is that in the unzoned areas, they can build anything they want next to you. So decide.
Without asking
Decide.
somebody?
Without, we can't do a
You
thing.
can't deny
We
somebody.
can't do a thing about it. So decide.
Yes, if it is a legal use, it has to be approved by law. The law says you have to approve it.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
I was told now, my brother lives next door to me. We live on Bridge Road, where y'all on the zone. We up for zoning now. We need to all get together, all areas. Okay, we fought y'all before, and I come up and said, I don't want your zone. My brother lives here, I live here, my sister lives here, Miss Kyra lives here, we go on down to the curb. What, another fellow owns what? What is he on down there? Mr. Tom going? About 5,000 acres, man. He didn't want to be zoned that. Okay, so now you come back again, just like I told that fellow that day, when you erase the line and put it behind my property. Now you put it in front of my property. Okay, then it's, we're going to grandfather you in. I'm 70 years old. So when I die, my son gets that property, guess what happens? It ain't grandfathered in no more. So then you can push your zoning in, just like I was talking about the pissant thing. Then you can just take it over, just like they done in
What
Martin.
are you afraid that the zoning is going to do to you or restrict you from doing?
Restrict me from doing what I want to do on my property.
But what
Parking
is
a trailer on my property instead of down there behind Sportsman's Corner. Parking a boat in my yard if I want to. Parking a truck
Those
in my yard
restrictions
if I
are not
want
part
to.
of zoning.
Huh?
Those types of restrictions are not part of zoning.
It was up to some parties that owned it up.
That was an overlay district, which
Yeah.
was done away with. Yes, sir.
But they still building it.
Listening as an observer, if we all can listen to the difference of the rural residential designation and no zoning, and then we can ask the question, we're going off on tangents about this and that. Let's find out what actually is entailed with the rural residential versus the non-zoning with no interruptions. We all can listen to exactly what he says. I'll pay money to anybody who can be quiet for 10 minutes. So we can listen to what the deal is. Then as a community, we can make a decision on how to talk to our representative. We elected Mr. Cooper, and we've got to figure out, how it's going to work. I mean, let's let him talk. Tell us, everybody's asking the same questions. Let's ask, let's find out.
How much you gonna pay me? You talking about paying me?
How much you want? How much you want? How much you want? I just want to hear. I think we all know each other in that respect. I mean, we keep interrupting. No, we're all the same. There's
We're
no,
all,
there's
we
no
are only
difference.
a handful of the community.
I get that. We're all the people though. And I will say this, you dominated probably 10% of the whole meeting and he can't answer the question. So we all need, you should respect us too and answer the question. I like how the zoning is right now, but I want to know exactly what the rural residential does. Do you want a nuclear dump site
No.
beside your house?
No,
Well, right
no.
now that could happen.
No.
And with rural residential, they have a say. So we at least need to know the differentiation of those things. Please, let's just let them talk, not interrupt, and then everybody go out, tear them up.
All right, so, unzoned, we have two countywide ordinances that apply in zone and unzoned areas, and we have conditional use regulations, which also apply in zone and unzoned areas. Now, for lot sizes, we have one that is on unpaved roads, we have one rule that's for 50 foot or more right of way, and we have one that is for 50 foot or less right of way, okay? So, if you have less than 50 foot right of way, then you need to have 2.5 acres of land to cut out a lot. That is one of the lot sizes that apply countywide. If you have a dirt road and you have 50 foot or more right of way, then you only need 1 acre of land. And that applies to both zone and unzoned areas. The other one I've already discussed involves the water and sewer. It's very similar. Now, use restrictions. There are conditional use restrictions that say things like you have to have a buffer yard, or you have to have so much land in order to do this. So for instance, in an unzoned piece of property, you wanted to do multifamily apartments. You can do them automatically by right because it's unzoned. There's no use restriction. We can't deny you the right to build those apartment complexes. But what we can do is through the conditional use regulation, we can tell you you have to have 25% green space or 30% green space. We can tell you you have to have 5 acres of land. That sort of thing. We can even put limits on things like you can't exceed 6 units per acre, etc. And that can apply to both zone and unzoned portions of the property. Now, if you want to restrict a use and say you cannot do that there, that is a power of zoning. And in RR, just to answer your question, agriculture is allowed all the way up. So, animal agriculture, horses, meat farms, general farms, forestry, logging, fishing, hunting, trapping, agricultural services, cattle ranching, agricultural crop production, crops, livestock, forestry. So, ag is allowed, okay? Mining, so think gold mining, etc., not permitted in RR. Okay? All of your basic things like water, sewer, electrical transmission lines, utilities, all permitted.
Rural conservation.
That was part of the LMO, which does not exist anymore. The LMO was done away with completely. All right. Manufacturing, not permitted in RR, so no minorities, bondexes, militants, etc. Most retail that is, Walmarts, Home Depots, large scale, is not permitted. Gas stations, flea markets, fruit and vegetable stands, bait and tackle shops, those sorts of things are permitted in RR. Publishing industry, motion picture production, those things not permitted. Libraries permitted, communication towers permitted, banks permitted, real estate, of course, was obviously permitted, mini warehousing, rental leasing services, professional, scientific, technical services, all permitted. junkyards, what do they call it, like tri-county, landfills, not permitted. Incinerators not permitted, schools all permitted.
So Doc, this question for me is, okay, that's in the R.
This is stuff that's allowed and not allowed in the law.
Property is unzoned, is that allowed?
No, if it's in unzoned, it can be done, period. There is no use restriction on unzoned property.
You brought up
Period.
apartments in an unzoned area, those would require sewer, wouldn't they?
Could, but here's the thing, and this is the biggest thing, and Rhonda knows this because I talk to her almost daily. When you get to a certain size development, it can be beneficial to the developer to put the water and sewer in to get their desired result. We cannot, as a government entity, stop them from putting water and sewer in. So a rule that controls lot size that's based off water and sewer, while yes, generally will offer you the level of protection you want in terms of lot size, is not a guaranteed offer of protection in lot size. Yes?
So how many turd ponds do we have here in Edgefield?
How many what?
Turd ponds. Wastewater management facilities.
I don't know. 3 maybe?
All up there in Edgefield Township?
Correct.
How many is out here in the county?
None.
Aren't they controlled by the EPA and federal regulations? So it's a pretty penny to put in a wastewater management facility. So I don't see a contractor spending the money to put one in to build a couple of apartments.
Windsor as an example. Or any developer, the county does not pay to put water and sewer into a development. The developer pays.
They funded it.
No, we did not. We funded an extension line on the public highway to go to it. They fund and have to pay out of pocket every penny of what goes inside the actual development. So what goes in their development to serve their houses, even the pump stations, they have to pay for that. What county council fronted the money for on Windsor was an extension from Sweetwater down Murray Road Extension, down Murray Road to the inlet where their development began. But everything inside of it is on them. They have to put all that in. And we put impact fees on them to pay and reimburse us for the expansion. So in the end, we won't even be fronting the money for the expansion. All that will be back to us. Now that's a PUD, which is a different thing, and I have a question on that too, so I can get to that.
How does this RR impact the district where it's going up to a county line and bumping into a place where, like, North Augusta city limits is bleeding over?
What do you mean, how does it impact?
Bleeding over the county line.
So everything that's on the border of North Augusta is already zoned RD.
Already, so everything that's on the border of.
So this is North Augusta's annexed property in Edgefield County. This
Okay.
little corner right here. All of that is already zoned
Okay.
RD.
No way to stop them from coming on up Martin Road, correct?
Say what?
No way to stop them from coming on up Martin Road.
Are you talking about annexation?
Yes.
No, I'm talking about.
We don't control annexation, and we don't have a say or a vote in it.
So North Augusta just come wide open.
They absolutely can. If the property
Across the
owner
county line?
does not matter, we do not have a say in it. That's
Would they have to comply with the ordinance if it's?
no. If they annex
If it's
it in,
zoned?
nope. If they annex it in, their zoning applies, not ours. It's no longer in our jurisdiction.
So the landowner has to agree.
The landowner and the city have to enter agreement for the annexation to take place. One annexed in, it goes inside the city limits, and their regulations apply, not county regulations.
Like the veterinary office down there, and the new dentist office and all that stuff on the right hand side.
They can build whatever they want,
They can
even
do
if it's zoned as RR in our district.
Well, it's no longer zoned RR if they annex it in. It's zoned whatever their zone is.
It has to be continuous too, they can't just, they
Correct.
can't just hop over.
Correct.
Okay, given that, okay, understanding your RR, again, we go back to the
understanding the wider brush of RR. RR is the least restrictive zoning that Edgefield County has. It allows everything except for industrial and heavy commercial. And I don't know where exactly you live, but none of the RR zoning that's proposed on that map has heavy commercial or industry in it.
But you're arguing, we don't want to take, this is going to protect you. But you're looking like, okay, we're all fighting zoning because we don't want anything to do with zoning. There are, like I said, RR might work for farmland, suburban, areas where you have forestry and things like that, but it's not going to work in areas where you have high density housing.
There's no the whole reason it was proposed is because everybody keeps saying they don't want high density.
So you're saying there's absolutely no high density housing?
The minimum lot size in RR, even if you have water and sewer, is 1 acre lot size.
I'm going to interrupt for a second. Okay, it's almost 4:05, and as your elected representative, I'm moving to stay as late on Friday night as y'all want to talk. Because we're going to be neighbors however long this takes. And neighbors are important to me. But not all of you can stay. And I know Todd, he's got a family to get home to. And I want him to have 5 minutes or however long he wants. Kind of share a concept that is a potential. Nothing's mandated, but it's an idea that I think has a lot of merit. I'd actually, well, rather than talking more, I just want to turn it over to the top, share whatever you want to share.
The issue that I have, I'm going to move that land where they go to in here, so I can get it. Okay? The thing that scares me, and this says, the thing that scares me about land that is not unzoned, that is a District 5 city, is that we want the right housing to come in, size, lot size, and like that. Unzoned, you are opening the doors to everything. The past 2 or 3 meetings that we've had at the planning commission, there's one specific that just, the whole planning commission would sit down the line thinking, we got to find a way to turn this down. We did. The judge overruled us. There's a development up here off in Stratford County line, between 18th and Edgefield County. Guy brings in half acre lots. The area is known that it has a problem with water table there. Okay? The plan comes in and it's got, it's got like 70 plus lots, okay? I've got all the residents sitting around just like this. Please don't let this happen. I'm like, I don't want it to happen. I really don't. The regulation is such that there's nothing we can do. We still, as a commission, voted 2-2, which means if you got denied, they went to the court, the judge decided, no, you don't have any right in this county. You don't have any regulation to stop it. So I've got all these residents kind of sitting around, and I'm in there, I'm in the boat of, I don't want that to happen. These half-acre lots. The developer basically now is going to develop 70 plus half-acre lots on an out parcel somewhere that is unzoned. We have no regulation on it, no way to stop it. And of all these people that live in here that have the 5 acres and apply, they are now going to have a subdivision out there somewhere that's going to suck the water life out of it. They're going to have all septic. So the whole idea about the zoning, I wish we could flip over. Well, what are you going to do with me? That's the turn over the fact that I promise you, as your representative, as one of the citizens here, I'm honestly trying to overpack what Edgefield County is doing. Us as residents over all these many years have done a great job because no one, right down here, how many parcels are for sale? How much land and houses actually for sale? People aren't moving out of this place, they're moving to it. People aren't selling the land that's here. They love it. And my whole focus on the planning commission and what's happening with this zoning, going to an RR review session. Look at the things that are over there. We just talked about dock session. These are things that they make no sense going in these areas. They're commission agreed with it, it's gone. So we hear it, but at the end of the day, the idea behind the zoning has everything to do with what I call codifying. It's basically, we see what this is, so how do you write it down on paper so that it stays this way? And that's what the RR district is what we're trying to do. This is not about telling you can't raise chickens or cows. My God, that's what we want you to do. That's exactly what we want to happen. We are not in any way trying to be some sort. I mean, that's the whole disconnect of this to me. What has been. If you're doing this too, what we're trying to do, honestly, is to codify, to say, we see what is out there, we want that to stay there. It's not.
A county ordinance with lot size, a county ordinance controlling lot size would have controlled that.
All we're going through this now,
5 acres.
however many months or whatever, but, some of what we're doing now, water and sewer, it makes sense, right?
Now, which was in response to that.
This was in response to that.
If we had done that ordinance 10 years ago, it would have never happened. But it wasn't done. What we're
When I
trying
tried to sell a lot on my property 20 years ago, and I go to town council and get permission, and I only sell 2.5, because they said it had to be 5, because I was septic, well, on a dirt road. So why did that happen? I don't understand.
So, on,
He's a house there.
so on unpaved roads, there's a rule that says if you have less than 1 foot right of way on the road, you have to be 2.5 acres. That's where that comes in. If you're more than half a mile from a road with 50 foot right of way, it's 5 acres. 5 acres is the largest lot size requirement that Edgefield County can require by state law. We can't make it be bigger than 5 acres.
So this half acre thing was obviously on paper?
Yes.
Yes, no.
He has to pay it, but he's paying it from Aiken County. So half of that subdivision is in Edgefield County, the other half is in Aiken County. And he was going to pay from Dragon's Lair down, is that Sunnybrook? What's next? Well, anyway, that's not over there. But I think it's Sunnybrook Road. And he was going to pay to the entrance of his
And Doc,
subdivision
I can say yes or no to this, but everything that we've been doing since we tabled this LMO has been to do less density to everything the planning commission's part of. Would you say, or?
I would say everything, including the LMO, was to reduce density. The LMO just had restrictions that took it too far.
It was way up.
I have a couple of questions for you. Some of the issues I see with this is we know what we've got now. There's no question we know what we got now. But someone up here a little while ago said the scary word is that with zoning, the county council gets to decide what's in it. Well, the problem is you're putting the buggy before the horse because you want us to buy off on a blank check because we don't know what the council's going to put in it.
We don't know
And
who the
that's what
council
scares
will be.
us, and that's why we really don't want this zoning thing, because everything I've heard is what we've got now. We know what we've got, and we know how we can fight it, but this zoning thing, again, like I said, it's all about economical development to grow a community. We're trying to tell you we don't.
Can I ask you something? And this is just one simple question. How does placing restrictions on the property promote development?
Because you're going to do planned development, planned community.
Development can be done
I'm telling you right now,
regardless
I can
of
see
development.
it. I can see this plain as day as I'm going to run down 25, or I'm going to run down Martintown, which is already a freaking freeway, and I'm going to see nothing but apartments and condos
And businesses.
and all this stuff running down there. We're going to be so density people in there, you're going to stack us up like a bunch of sardines. I can see it coming because all I can hear is ching ching, ching ching, ching ching for these people who own this property that wants to get as many houses on a piece of property as they can possibly get at our expense. Because the other thing you got to look at is 5 districts, 4 of them have already said, we ain't gonna mess with this zoning thing. And the other problem we got is we're looking at Meriwether shrinking in size because of the census report coming out. So now what's going to happen, and who's going to be affected, and how are they going to be affected? And if you go ahead and you zone now and then it shrinks, and those people that get shrunk out of District 5, they're now zoned in an area that didn't want zoning. So I think, again, we need to wait until the census is done and get those new lines drawn so we know exactly who's going to be impacted. And I think the county council needs to come up with their plan right now on what they plan on writing into those zoning laws. So we have.
They're already on the website.
No, come on. I want it because the problem with the council is that, yeah, we passed this, but you know what? Let's go ahead and do this. It's just like I watched our property taxes get raised, and I didn't hear any questions being asked. And that scares the hell out of me. Because the guy, this auditor who had to stand up there and say, yeah, we're going to do away with the road maintenance fee, and we're going to increase your property tax, and based on $100,000, it'll be the same. Well, what if you don't have a $100,000 home? What if you have more than that? You're now going to be paying more money, and the people that rent in this area pay nothing to use our roads. So it scares me when I see something like that happen at a council meeting in like 10 seconds. It's like, whoa,
John.
Whoa, something's wrong here. Because I got to tell you, I don't know who this Mr. Ford is, but Mr. Ford made a comment at one of your meetings that 20% of Edgefield is zoned, but the public comments need to be considered before other action is taken. And you tried it before, you're here again, and we're saying, leave it alone. Leave it alone.
I'd like to give Mr. Brown 7 more minutes.
Go ahead, because I know he stands to make money if this thing goes through.
Now he's developing.
But the thing is, if you pass this on, it's up to county council. They can do 3 meetings, just like they said. Most people don't even know when you're going to do it. You pass it, you change whatever you want in that zoning then, without having to do much but bring it up on the agenda and pass it.
The planning commission, what we do is we make a recommendation to the county council. That's what we're going through right now. It's not an earthquake yet.
So are you on the planning commission?
Yes, ma'am.
You're on the District 5 planning commission? Okay. Okay.
And so, what we've been doing for the past X amount of months, years, really.
You're changing it, means we can't have 3 residents on a piece of property. When you do that, you consider it community.
6, 7 months.
My nephew, we have a Chinese.
Again, I'm going back to what.
You want to give your son 2 acres, do the same driveway, and it'll be considered.
That I know this is
We've done that at the council.
And the whole focus, the whole target of having that zoning R put onto it is so that it will keep that area as is, so that it doesn't, you don't see this leapfrogging of commercial all of a sudden going on this outparcel somewhere.
Well, I'm not just worried about commercial, I'm also worried about residential development.
Can you let him finish his sentence? I'm not trying to be agitated, but he really has a wealth of knowledge, and he's studied.
He's also a residential developer.
But he is also an invested individual who played in these fields growing up. So let him give some respect. Let him finish.
I'm trying to get clarity and understanding of what you're doing.
You have spoken, like he said, maybe 10% of the time you do your matters. Let him finish.
I'm speaking for 5 families.
He's
Nobody trusts either.
My email is on the website. I live at 1625 West Mark County Road. I have 20 acres there. I grew up 4 doors down, okay? We are builders, yes. We're commercial. We build things all over Augusta, you know? I'm one of the developers on Tappan Hill. The same guy that, you drive through a Cooper place here, you think that looks kind of nice? It's going to look the same. So the thing about it is that we want something, as things develop, we've got to go through a thought process here of preserving what is happening
So in your opinion, you're saying you would like to see a more restricted district, where lot sizes are even higher than 2.5 acres.
In some areas, yes.
I'm sorry, that's what we got.
But then you get into a situation similar to this, like you said, and you have 5 acres, 10 acres, whatever it is, you may want to carve out some acres, or family members live there. What if someone owns 5 acres and wants to carve out something that's 5 acres? I mean, you get into all these kind of things like that about, is it too restrictive to actually have potential carve out lot sizes being 2.5 acres versus like an acre? Someone to be able to do it on the property. It sounds counterintuitive to something like that. If someone's got a certain amount of land, they want to carve out X amount of acres for someone to live. Well, it may work out that way, depending on land size. Anyway, again. I can.
It's 212 lots.
212 lots. It's 212 and it's 101 acres. Over 101 acre property.
So average lot size half an acre.
Average lot size half an acre. I thought we were trying to prevent that.
That's not 101 acres on the map.
This subdivision is going to have.
It's not 101 acres on the map.
Like that, similar to what I'm saying. So I mean.
The lot is smaller, if you're gonna have parks and sidewalks and all that, you just lost acreage, so your lot just has
There's
smaller.
going to be, I think we calculated it's going to be like 40% open space, with parks and trails and areas, concourse.
That includes the power line and the retention pond.
The county council passed that. 3 residents, 1 driveway, considered a residence. Ask him, how do you do that?
Is that consistent or is that city? Is that water and sewer? No, it doesn't.
Absolutely.
In underground utilities, which is another issue which we haven't even talked about. Utilities going underground, which is important from a resiliency scheme. So, it is 5 o'clock. So here's what I'm going to make a suggestion. Again, this was a meeting that was organized by Ms. Reese for her family, and it somehow became public, which I think is fantastic. We'll do another one if you want to. I do want to allow our staff on Friday night to go home at 5 o'clock. I think it's fair. I want to say thank you to them. But I will say wrapping it up, and Rhonda, I'm going to stay for anyone who wants to stay and talk to me personally. Doc is our resident expert. He was at 90% of all the small group meetings we had, which were advertised. They were very well attended. They were very productive. In addition to those, let me just finish and then I'm going to. In addition to those, we've had a lot of meetings like we had scheduled this afternoon with Ms. Reese.
Can I ask you one question while you're still here?
And they have also been productive. So I want to say thank you to Doc and to April. April's new, right? New, what was your hire date?
I've been here 6 years, but I moved from the assessor's office over to building plan and
You got stolen from one department to the other. So give them a round of applause, please. And then I'm going to stay, it's not going to stay as long as you want, but I'm not going to make you all stay.
So
I'll answer questions.
planning commission meetings in county council.
Well, one of the things that we did early on when I being servant was I'm gonna answer your question. I'm gonna call on you in a minute. What was very important to me was to get the technology required to live stream our meetings. Because I felt this, what we're going through now, I felt it was going to happen. And not only for the 10 meetings, where I moved from, yes, I did move here, the supervisory meetings happened at 7 o'clock. Most people had an hour and a half to meet where I came from. So we started at 7 o'clock. This community does it at 6. Most people can't get their customers.
No.
So that was important to me. That was one of the things y'all may know. I got censored by the Republican Party. That was because I wanted to upgrade our technology in the county. So that we could do the live streaming, get a better phone system, and get better computers. And
Holy cow.
I'm answering your question because and I
district?
So one of the reasons, and Doc, you're welcome to say
Is there?
but one of the reasons that we went to bi-district meetings is because we felt it would help us build better relationships with our constituents that we represent, both as an elected representative and as a planning commission. When you get 400 people in a room, honestly, even in this size room, it's hard to know where everybody is.
I would like to add something to that, just real quick, because Nathan, Rhonda, and Linda are here. All three of these talk to me regularly. I am more than happy to answer people's questions if they come into my office, if they email me, if they call me. I can't give you political opinions. Not wanting zoning, preferring this regulation to that regulation, those are all personal opinions. All I can do is help you understand what the rules, regulations, and laws are, and what the limits of the state and federal law versus local laws are. If you get 500 people in a room, I am useless to you. There is no way that I can directly answer a question in that kind of setting. It would take a decade.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting if when you're going to do something, when you're talking about zoning versus non-zoning, especially when you're talking about a community that has been for decades unzoned, and they've fought it to keep it unzoned, and you're talking about, okay, we need to zone it. When you're talking about doing something that's going to have that much of an impact on the community, maybe not from your perspective, because you're looking at planning, we're looking at life and home, our place. So, communication meetings large enough where people can hear what you're thinking about doing, how you plan it on doing it. You don't have to take questions. Just tell the community what you're doing, how you're going to do it, why you're going to do it. Keep it simple because not everybody in the community is a college graduate. Okay, so communication, what you're doing, why you're doing it, how it's going to impact the community. Number one thing is, if you're going to switch from this to this, what am I going to gain and what am I going to lose? That's what everybody's asking. And I think that a lot of people in the community are very against this because they don't have any idea what you're planning. All they're hearing is zoning, and we're not zoned. Is that fine? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
You think that, now I know I've been mouthy, but what I'm trying to say to you is I don't think you're understanding what everybody is trying to say and where we're coming from. Nobody's fighting you, nobody is angry with you, we're just saying, whoa, whoa. The majority of your community, and especially your district, has no idea what you're doing, why you're doing it. They've heard zoning and unzoning. Zoning, not zoning. We're not zoning.
I will just say, I don't know whether that's an accurate statement.
I'm telling you it is.
I do believe there are some people.
There are a lot of people.
But what I know to be true is that we had that 19 postcard cards are going out and our phone calls are going out. And what I also know to be true is there are individuals that are on the other side of this. There are.
But there are a lot of people who are against it.
And they're not because they've already had a conversation. But
And the majority of people that would be at this meeting are not here because they don't know what happened.
like you said, we decided on dog bites, and I'm okay with that. And I'll say one other thing, because it's been asked me, why am I this? Why? Well, I've lived in 3 regions, and I've seen what the economic pressures that we're going through happen. And
Why can't you have a meeting in a school within the district and tell people what you're doing, why you're doing it, why you want to do it?
There will be a public hearing at the end of all of this. There is a public hearing, and it will be held either in the school gym or the town gym, is what Roger said, and that's our county administrator. But that public hearing is not to ask questions. That is the final product.
Yeah, but that's like a final thing after they've already made the plans. That's what I heard.
Yep. That's right, and that's what happened at Sweetwater Church. That's what needs to happen again.
They're gonna get all later in December, we'll be on that. I heard that at the meeting.
because I was already invested. And I watched the wandering minds, and I watched what's happening now. But, so I'm not new to what's going on, but what I'm doing, because I'm an elected representative, is because of what I have seen happen in rural areas where I lived before.
And you need to do a better job of communicating with your district.
Well, did you say you don't have the internet?
I have
Did you
it,
say you don't
but I didn't get any information about this.
Give me your phone number, I'll call you every month.
That's only gonna help me, that's not gonna help the other constituents.
That's right.
Why do you divide up our district so that those areas
that's